People always say that history is written by the powerful. What they forget is that history is also written by the careless. This is not a story about monsters. There are no demons, no magic, no legends exaggerated by time. This is a story about a man who outlived everyone who ever laughed at him, and a woman who thought words had no consequences. She called him Old Man. Not whispered, not jokingly. She said it out loud, in a room full of people who suddenly stopped breathing. The kind of silence that only happens when everyone knows something terrible has just begun. She smiled when she said it. Confident, protected, untouchable. Because in her world, power came from visibility, from youth, from influence. And he had none of that. At least, that's what she believed. The man didn't react. No anger. No raised voice. No threat. He simply looked at her. Not with hatred. Not with shock. But with something far worse. Recognition. The same look he had given generals before ordering their arrest. The same look he had given ministers before erasing them from records. The same look that meant, you have just identified yourself as a problem. His name was Elias Vaughan. And for 40 years, he had been the kind of man whose name never appeared in headlines, but appeared in every decision that mattered. He didn't rule countries. He ruled systems. Graves. Courts. Archives. Supply chains. Borders. When empires fell, he didn't flee. He stayed. Because someone always needed to decide who disappeared quietly and who was remembered incorrectly. The woman who mocked him was named Marissa Hale. 32 years old. Media strategist. Public figure. Connected to people who believed themselves immune to consequence. She had been invited to that private meeting because she was useful. And because she believed she was important. That belief would cost her everything. The meeting ended awkwardly. People avoided Elias's eyes. Some avoided Marissa's. She noticed, and laughed it off. She didn't understand why seasoned politicians suddenly excused themselves early. She didn't understand why the room felt colder. And she didn't understand why Elias stayed seated long after everyone else had left. When Marissa finally walked past him, she leaned in slightly. "Relax, old man," she said. "You're not scary anymore." She meant it as a joke. Elias nodded once. That was all. That night, Elias did not sleep. He never slept much after insults. Not because they hurt, but because they created work. He opened an old notebook, the kind that never touched the internet, and he wrote one name. Marissa Hale. Marissa's life didn't collapse overnight. That's not how it works. Real power doesn't explode. It tightens. The first thing she noticed was subtle. An email didn't get answered. Then another. A scheduled appearance was postponed indefinitely. Her assistant blamed logistics. Her manager blamed politics. No one blamed Elias. Because no one ever did. A week later, a journalist published an article about Marissa's past work. Nothing dramatic. Just selective. Old quotes taken out of context. Associations reframed as concerning. Questions raised without accusations. But questions are enough. Sponsors don't like questions. Marissa called favors. Some answered politely. Some didn't answer at all. One longtime contact finally told her the truth, quietly. "I don't know what you did," he said. "But someone very old and very bored has noticed you." She laughed. Still confident. Still untouchable. That same week, a routine audit began. Then another. Then a legal review of a company she had once advised, years ago. Her name appeared in footnotes. Not charges. Not yet. Footnotes are how graves are dug. Meanwhile, Elias met with no one. He made no calls. He issued no threats. He simply allowed doors to close. Because the doors had always been his. Marissa tried to confront him. She requested a meeting through 3 intermediaries. All refused. Not because Elias said no, but because no one wanted to be seen asking. Then came the message. Not from Elias. From an anonymous source. One sentence. "You should apologize while apologies still mean something." For the first time, Marissa didn't laugh. She replayed the moment in her mind. The joke. The smile. The room going quiet. She finally understood something far too late. Elias Vaughn hadn't been offended. He had been activated. That night, she searched his name. There was almost nothing. No scandals. No interviews. No digital footprint worth noting. Just gaps. And gaps, in history, are never accidental. The final line of the anonymous message arrived minutes later. He buried louder people than you. Slow down, ominous. Marissa stared at her phone. And for the first time in her life, she felt something she couldn't spin. Fear. Not of death, but of erasure. Power does not destroy people directly. It removes witnesses first. Marissa Hale stopped being invited. Not officially. Not dramatically. Her name simply disappeared from lists. Panels filled without her. Dinners rescheduled without explanation. Private chats went quiet. People she once mentored now avoided eye contact. Not out of hatred. Out of fear. She noticed security where there hadn't been any before. Not for her. Around her. Guards that didn't answer questions. Staff who took notes but never followed up. Drivers who refused detours. Someone was watching the perimeter of her life. And she wasn't the priority. Marissa hired a private investigator. A discreet one. He lasted 4 days. On the 5th, he returned her retainer and said only this. "There are histories you don't pull on." She demanded names. He shook his head. Then he gave her advice she didn't want. Disappear for a while. She couldn't. Disappearance meant surrender. And Marissa Hale had never surrendered to anyone. Her reputation continued to erode. A former colleague accused her of manipulation, nothing illegal, just unpleasant. Another hinted she had benefited from unethical proximity to power. No proof. Just implication. But implication is enough to rot a public image. Marissa reached out to her legal team. They warned her carefully. "You're not under investigation," they said. "But you're close to several things that are." Close was the worst place to be. Meanwhile, Elias Vaughn reviewed files older than Marissa herself. Not to attack her directly, but to map the ecosystem that allowed her to exist. Who amplified her voice? Who funded her access? Who looked the other way when she crossed lines? He didn't need to punish her. He needed to make her unsupported. And one by one, they stepped back. Marissa's phone rang less. Then almost not at all. When it did ring, it was reporters. Not with questions. With silence. Letting her talk. Letting her expose desperation. The first time she cried in public, it went viral. Not out of sympathy. Out of fascination. People love to watch confidence decay. Marissa finally understood she was not being attacked. She was being processed. The realization came during a routine hearing. Not about her. About a foundation she had once partnered with. She sat in the back, unnoticed. And then she heard a name. Elias Vaughn. Not spoken aloud. Written in a document. Listed as a historical consultant. That was when it clicked. Elias didn't operate in the present. He controlled context. He decided how the past was framed. And in doing so, he decided who the future trusted. Marissa confronted him anyway. Not directly. She sent a message through a mutual contact, someone old, quiet, and terrified. The reply came 2 days later. A meeting. No location listed. Just a time. The building was administrative. Unmarked. Unimpressive. The kind of place where decisions happen. That no one ever hears about. Elias was already seated when she entered. He didn't stand. Didn't smile. Didn't pretend this was personal. "You insulted me," Marissa began. He raised a hand. "No," Elias said calmly. "You misjudged me." She demanded to know what he wanted. An apology. A statement. Silence. He looked at her for a long moment. Then he answered. Understanding. He explained nothing directly. He didn't need to. He simply described how power actually works. How institutions remember. How reputations are curated. How inconvenient people are reclassified as liabilities. "You thought influence was volume," he said. "You thought visibility was armor." He leaned forward slightly. "It isn't." Marissa accused him of ruining her life. Elias corrected her gently. "No," he said. "I removed the lie you were standing on." She asked the question she had avoided since the beginning. "Is this because I called you old?" Elias didn't answer immediately. When he did, his voice was almost tired. "I am old," he said. "And I survived everyone who thought that mattered." He stood. That was the end of the meeting. No threats. No deal. No forgiveness. As she left the building, Marissa understood something terrifying. Nothing would stop. Because nothing had started. This was simply how the world corrected errors. That night, she lost her largest remaining sponsor. By morning, her name was officially associated with risk. The final category. Marissa Hale was still alive. Still free. Still breathing. But in the world she once ruled, she no longer existed. Marissa Hale did what people always do. When they realize power is slipping away, she tried to tell her story first. She recorded a long-form interview. No accusations. No names. Just vulnerability. She spoke about pressure. About misunderstanding. About being targeted by forces she didn't fully understand. She framed herself as reflective. Humbled. Human. The video performed well for 12 hours. Then it stopped. Not removed. Not censored. Simply ignored. Algorithms don't need to be ordered. They respond to signals. And the signal around Marissa was clear. Do not amplify. She tried again. An article. A personal essay. It was well written. Emotionally precise. But no major outlet picked it up. Editors praised it privately. Then declined. Always politely. One editor was honest. "You're not controversial," he said. "You're unresolved." That was worse. Marissa reached out to Elias one final time. Not to argue. Not to accuse. To ask for terms. The response came through the same anonymous channel as before. One sentence. There are no terms. Only outcomes. That was when panic set in. Not loud panic. Quiet, internal panic. The kind that rewrites how you see every room. She noticed how people spoke around her now. Never to her. She was present. But no longer addressed. As if acknowledging her directly might contaminate them. Her legal team withdrew. Not dramatically. They cited strategic differences. Her PR firm followed. Then her last advisor. Marissa tried to leave. A sabbatical. A relocation. But borders are not just geographic. Her visa application stalled. Residency reviews reopened. No denials. Just delays. She was stuck inside a life that no longer moved forward. Elias Vaughn attended her final professional event. She didn't know he was there. He never announced himself. The event was small. Poorly attended. A panel discussion about ethics in media. Marissa was not a speaker. She sat in the audience. The moderator referenced her once. Not by name. As someone formerly involved in related initiatives. Formally. Elias watched without expression. Not with satisfaction. With confirmation. Within 6 months, Marissa's digital presence changed. Search results buried her achievements beneath qualifiers. Controversial. Disputed. Former. Her name became a warning, not a reference. Within a year, she was removed from boards. Quietly. Minutes amended. Histories revised. She was never charged. Never convicted. Never publicly destroyed. Because that would have made her important. Instead, she became irrelevant. Elias lived another 8 years. When he died, there were no headlines. No tributes. Just a closed service. Attended by people who understood exactly what had ended. Marissa read the notice days later. She felt nothing. Not relief. Not victory. Only the confirmation that there would be no reversal. Years later, a junior researcher asked about her during a briefing. The room went silent. Then someone said, "She misread the room." And that was the entire explanation. Final lines, deliberate, heavy pause. She called him old man. She thought power aged. She thought influence expired. She thought visibility meant safety. She was wrong. Because the most dangerous people are not feared. They are remembered by systems. And systems do not forget.